I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting for budget season FY20. This is our fourth meeting in a series of 5 meetings. And tonight we are going to be discussing general government and the compensation plan. I'm Marie Harpin. I have Becky Cohen here. So she is also on the Finance Committee. Taking attendance, Ms. Cohen? Here. Okay, and Councilor Wilkinson is absent. So first order of business is, in this meeting is being recorded, so everybody knows. First order of business is to approve minutes from the previous meetings. Yes. And first one was meeting number 2 from May 1st. I am going to make a motion to approve.
I will second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Alrighty, so approved. The second agenda item is to approve meeting number 3 from May 8th. The meeting notes, I'm going to make a motion to approve.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved. Everything is approved. Okay, so moving along, we all have copies of the budget. And we are going to go through line by line like we did all the other departments. So tonight we're doing general government. I don't know, Mayor or Mr. Canales, do you have anything that you would like to say just in general about any major changes in general government? Or if things are going to remain the same?
No, there are no major changes, nor a lot of any surprises in the budget. So I think if we go through line by line, if there are particular questions, we can take them up as they come.
Okay, and I'm going to sit this way so that I can see if anybody has any questions, just interrupt me. Okay, so the first line is the administrative officer, and the total expenses for the administrative officer is $71,675. We do not have any questions. Moving on to the assessor. Total expenses for the assessor is $109,830. Broken out, that's salaries is $102,305, and the total expenses is $7,525. Okay. Going to move on to the auditor. Total for the auditor is $99,798. The total salaries is $99,698, and they have expenses of $100. No questions. Okay. The Board of Appeals, total expenses $1,600. Okay, no questions. This is moving along quickly. I think it's showing on here. Okay, city clerk. We have a total for the city clerk of $100,439. It's total expenses of $98,389, and the total expenses is $2,050. I think there was a question on this one. Regarding some issues that are going to be happening specifically in 2020, like some additional, I think you're going to have the primary, for the presidential primary going on, also the census is happening, and I think there's a lot going on with just getting the new ID or your new license. There's a lot more requirements, and that's putting some additional traffic, I guess I would say, into the,
and stuff.
yeah, into the clerk's office. So I'm wondering if there's any room for some additional part-time help during some peak season, peak times, you know, like during the elections specifically.
We met with the clerk this morning with regard to that request. Got a breakdown of anticipated hours, and we're going to take a look at that. And if we put in something, it'll be in the final budget presented at the next meeting.
Okay, so the final budget will be ready at the next Wednesday's meeting.
So the goal for the meeting next Wednesday is to incorporate any changes that have been made as we've continued to evolve the budget through this process.
Okay, perfect.
What are the dues and memberships and the city clerk line items? Could you just define what that is? Dues and memberships?
We belong to 3 city and town clerk organizations, which is for training and updating political elections,
Mhm.
different things of that nature, office of campaign finance, things of that nature.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I would like to just go back to the assessor because I had it highlighted in my notes here and I didn't ask the question about the Green Community Coordinator. I was just wondering what types of things are going to be happening this year as far as the Green Community specifically.
So we have lighting and weatherization up at the library. We are looking at upgrading the lighting on Main Street to LED, cost savings there. In addition, the next phase that we'll be focused on next year is windows, weatherization, HVAC at the public safety building using the Green Communities program.
And that's at public safety.
Yes.
So
Counselor
is this an
LaForge?
existing position or is this a stipend?
The stipend that's paid to the person that coordinates the program, they're able to go out and get, I know Ross has gotten a number of additional grants and opportunities for us to expand our green communities. In addition, we use the National Grid programs and other municipal programs that allow us to upgrade our lighting, things such as that, in order to get savings. For example, down at the rink, we were able to replace the lighting with LED lighting down there. Had a 1.7-year payback, so something that would pay itself back very fast. In addition, 2 years ago, we did the lighting at the new DPW building. And like I said, the next phase is new lighting, LED lighting up at the library, along with some weatherization.
And I'd like to, once we get through those projects, look at a couple of other opportunities, including this building, which I think there's some efficiency opportunities here. I have kind of mixed feelings about that in terms of using those resources at the best benefit of the community. There's a kind of a pay yourself last approach. If there are other places in the city where we can get greater impact, I'd rather do those first rather than City Hall, but I think there's also efficiencies we can get from Green Community right here in this building. So.
Okay, and those are grants that he can help get from wherever, the state or federal.
Green Communities, ELTA grants, different incentives through National Grid for Berkshire Gas, things such as that. So.
Okay.
To continue off that, so would this be a stipend to the assessor? If
Right
he's-
now, Ross is the person that has
That is
taken
the
on
Green
the
Community Court.
Okay.
coordinating the Green Communities program.
And is this sort of to say this is to cover so many extra hours he would be working on top of his current position?
And yes, additional duties, responsibilities, and hours as needed. Yep.
So,
Is that it? Okay.
Does he log his hours for that work? Is that something? That seems like a lot of work. And $5,200. Yeah, I mean, okay. No questions.
Okay. Okay, so skipping back down, we went through the city clerk.
can we, actually, with the city clerk?
Oh, did you
Yeah.
want to ask?
Yeah, well, no, it just, I know you said they'll be coming back, and I will say, every Tuesday when we have meetings, I go in the morning, and, clearly the Real ID thing has added the interruptions that happen in the office because of Real ID. That's something that's a little annoying to think that the federal government forces, onto, local government to have to do, and, you know, they don't supplement anything for it because, I mean, just this last Tuesday when I was down there, I mean, I had to wait, you know, 20, 30 minutes before they could stop. People just kept coming in needing their real IDs, or they were on the phone, people calling about them. So it is my understanding, you know, it's doubled the workload of that. And it's not just a case of someone coming in and it's just hit a button and they have a new ID that pops out. So each one does take up some time. And it's not so much that just that, it also interrupts the flow, you know, so you're into doing something. So it's something that I've noticed every time I've been in there, that there's just constant, and hopefully that slows down after 2020, because I think by then most people have to have them. But it just, right now, it has definitely been a time-consuming piece of that office.
Yeah, I would just like to say I would agree with that as well, and it's not just the people that live in North Adams, it's everybody that was born in North
yeah.
Adams. So I have relatives that live out of town that have called me to go down and get birth certificates for them because they need it to get their license. So it's not just people here that are requesting that. Okay, so moving along, if we don't have any other questions, city council, total expenses for city council, $35,920, total salaries of $27,600, and expenses of $8,320. Okay, no questions?
What was the deed recording and filing that there hasn't been? Is that something that's kind of phased out? Was it a duty that deed recording and filing as an expense under city council?
Yeah.
Is there a copy of page 2 floating around somewhere?
Yeah.
Do you have an extra copy?
That's not this one, but that's okay. I
It
can
seems-
just use that.
I mean, is that, was that
There must have been a deed that needed to be recorded.
in 17
You know,
and 18?
whether or not you took possession of something that had to have a deed requirement, I'm just not sure. I mean, it's not something normal, so it's something that hasn't been in the budget for the last couple of years. I'd have to go back and try to
Yeah,
figure
it's
out
just-
why
it's
there
an
was a
interesting line
$50
item on the
actual
city
one.
council.
It was, money was then put in and then nothing happened the
Yeah,
following year,
yeah.
so it just flipped in 17 and,
Yeah, it's kind of odd, it's a small amount.
Yeah.
yeah. And I would recommend that things such as that should just fall under, you know, we do a miscellaneous
Yeah.
purchase line of 20,000,
Right,
you know,
right.
instead of creating a line item in the future. Well, obviously, the decision was made at that point to put it in.
Mhm.
All right, I'm gonna move on to election and registration, and the total expenses for that line is $21,275. The salaries are $11,800, and the expense line is $9,475. Anybody has any questions? Councilor Forrest?
And so this increase over last year reflects the
Three
presidential
instead of
election?
2 elections.
I'm sorry?
There's gonna be 3
Yeah.
instead of 2.
Right, okay.
Wanted to check that we're all on new voting machines now, so that's stable and set for now.
It's fine. And I just wanted to ask too, as far as the salaries go, I know these are like seasonal, part-time people. They're at minimum wage now as well, if that's applicable.
I did add that in, we did do that increase, that's why there is a little extra in there as well. It was $11 an hour, this year it will be 12.
Okay.
So that's another increase, along with the third.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, Office of Community Development, the total is $46,012. Total salaries, $40,712, and the total expenses, $5,300. I'm just wondering, if you can explain, it seems like we have 3 new positions and another position that has, it seems like maybe could be grant funded.
So all these
So,
are,
yeah, a lot of this is, I'm sorry, Mike. A lot of this is grant funded because community development block grant administrative charge covers a portion of the salary for community development. So you may remember last year, there was no community development budget line because it was all a single line item under, was it unclassified?
unclassified.
Under unclassified, so we did put it here to show the full function of the department. I think actually this line last year was purchasing, which is why the so the director of purchasing. So that's a kind of a split position between the fiscal and compliance officer is also doing procurement, so that's one position. The director of community development is the existing position, and we're bringing on primarily with with CDBG grant funding a project coordinator to bring that department up to what we think is the full staff level it should be at.
Okay, so is that one additional full-time employee?
Actually, it's one less. We're gonna have 3 in that department. It used to be 4 full-time. So we're
Okay,
actually going to 3 full-time positions. The only reason that we left director of purchasing in there is because it's been in the budget before. But right now, as the mayor said, the fiscal compliance and director of purchasing is one person serving both those functions. We have a director of project coordinator. We used to have a clerk too. So this used to be a 4-person department, and now it's only 3 full-time employees.
okay, so it's one less.
Yep.
Counselor Bennington?
The salaries don't seem to reflect full-time positions. Is that because of offset from the grant?
Offset from
Offset
the
from
grant.
CDBG.
So that's what we're seeing is the residual effect that we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was gonna find the.
You're making me dizzy, Mike.
Office of
Community
Community
development.
Development. So as you can see, it actually at one point was $125,000. It was 61, and now it's down to 46.
Well, the
Well,
salary
salaries
line
are
is
40,
40,
yeah,
41,
47.
41.
These were all just thrown together before, but at one point,
Those are expenses, the whole thing.
Mhm. Well, the salaries are just.
and because we had a loss of a position in this year, that's, oh, yeah. Didn't mean to do that, but
Hit the back button.
You gotta put that back in, Mike,
Yep.
you're gonna undo.
there we go. As you can see, in 18, we put in 125, and fully anticipating the city to have to fund one full position. And that's the year that our procurement officer left for a position at Williams. We ended up combining positions, and that's why we were able to bring the funding down. So it is a department that overall has now, like I said, shrunk by a single position.
Counselor LaForest?
So what is the actual budget for this office with 3 full-time employees?
About 140,000 for the employees.
Okay.
That's
I can
for
get
the
you-
salaries?
I'll have that for the next meeting, the exact amount.
Okay.
It's 60 something for the director and then 40 for the other 2 positions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Which one is taken over Kathy's position?
We don't have that, that's the
So
position.
That's the position that's no longer.
Okay,
Yeah.
but it's being covered somehow, isn't it?
Yes.
And is that through salary or stipend?
No.
Salary.
Salary.
So the
We've
positions
gone
that
to
we
3
have
positions and we feel
covered.
as though we can meet the needs of the department
Okay.
with 3 instead of 4.
Okay.
Okay. Now that we got through community development, we'll move on to the law department. The total for the law department is 47,000. And that is only an expense. We, in prior years, used to have a salary expense because we had a solicitor, but we no longer have a solicitor, so we only have an expense now, right? And so I think I asked you where we are year to date on that, and you said, what was it, about 40 something thousand?
We have about 7,500 remaining.
About 39 on the 39 expended year to date.
Okay.
That's pretty good. That's good.
So it looks like we are on track for budget.
Yeah.
Right. And that is kind of comparable to what we used to pay for the solicitor.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
so it's, yeah, this, in FY18, the solicitor line was about 43,000, we're paying 46. Or we budgeted 46 this year, and, I think it's been a good arrangement. As we've done some contracts and other things, we've been able to, Mike, you can speak to this I think at the airport in particular, use their bank, for lack of a better word, of templates. So we've had things that are developed. If you look at some of the past contracts on different operations, they've been slightly different because they were sort of rewritten, redrafted to suit the situation rather than being based on a well-developed template. So our contracts are better than I think they were previously.
Mr. Sevier?
Yes, a question on your litigation expenses. Is that amount that we're seeing reflected on how often we use KP Law to represent the city in different matters? I mean,
So rather than a salary, that litigation expense line is where we have the entire annual fee for the solicitor.
and that would vary depending on how much we would need that, or is that a constant fee, or?
Well, that's what we're budgeted. They bill by the hour, I think.
I see.
So that's
So it's based on.
Yeah, and he said
Yes.
year-to-date, we have about 7,500 remaining from that budget.
Right. Thank you.
You want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Councilor Bowman, go ahead.
I have an issue with this one, and, while maybe with the contracts itself, it has been beneficial, but I would say on the city council's end, I feel we have no legal representation. I've been with the council for a while, and it's very, very different now. We used to have a direct line to the solicitor, and, we could communicate, the city clerk could communicate at any time. And now it sort of feels like it's on the dime, like we're really being held back from not being able to use the solicitor. I mean, we're the entity that's writing and evaluating and adjusting the city law, and we don't have free use of a legal advisor. Anytime we've sort of have suggested, something going to the solicitor, it seems to sort of get roadblocked that, well, we can take care of it this way, or we can find it this way. There was even one time at one of our meetings that a legal question came up, and when I went to ask it, you sort of told, well, he's not here for that. Which I feel for the council, we should have a direct line to the solicitor, not having to go through the city administration or the mayor's office to get the answer. So I feel we've lost a great deal, at least as the council, from this change. So the savings, if any, is because the service has been cut from us. That's just how I have felt. I mean, we used to have the solicitors would come to our meeting, and we had legal, a lot of times things would come up. We used to refer things a lot to the solicitor's office to make sure the way we were writing it was legally correct. I can't think of the last time we've referred something to the solicitor to make sure it is correctly written, So, and probably because every time if we did that, it'd be a $200 or $500 bill attached to every ordinance we want to get. But before, we could just freely do that and have that confidence that there was no conflict with other laws or things. And I know, Mr. Canales has, he will refer to mass law a lot. And often that may be correct, but at the same time, you can interpret laws different ways too. And I just feel more confident, me hearing it directly from someone who is a lawyer versus how I might interpret the law. So that's just my opinion on that I do not like the new system as a counselor. I think we've lost a lot, so. Do you want to say anything, Jason?
Say something.
Well, no, so I mean, two questions. I mean, to Councilor Bona's point, that is codified in the ordinances of the city, that the council is supposed to have access to the solicitor. My question was, you know, to be sure, and I think the mayor already spoke to this point, that, you know, on the whole, the city is confident in this switch to KP Law, at least on the executive side. So you, this.
I think on the side of the best interest of the city.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Right, okay. Right, but, yeah, I mean, I don't fully, you know, I don't disagree with Councilor Bona per se, but my question that I was going to raise was that, you know, this has been a beneficial transition, and
I believe
you twice
it.
now, yes,
Yeah.
yes, and a third time, so, thank you.
And if I could just clarify one thing, being said that if I refer to Mass General Law, yes, when it's a matter of just fact, not opinion. So if you were to ask, what's the bid threshold? That's Mass General Law. You don't have to ask an opinion on that. That can actually, that is just 50,000, bids kick off. There's no question. If we want to establish a revolving fund, you know, that's Mass General Law, Chapter 4453E and a half. Tells you how to establish a revolving fund. You don't need to, so, but there's a big difference between, none of us here are gonna give our opinion on a law. But when you send myself to become a certified procurement officer, I'm a certified assessor, Mike Nuvali's the same. We're certified in the complete streets programs, we're certified in other things. We go there to get these expertise so that we can answer questions that are direct questions. I mean, one was, Keith, you raised a question of whether or not traffic taxi licenses had to go. So I just called up the taxi law, and right there it says, approved by, and I sent it to you. It's a black and white. It has to be approved by the council. It's right in Mass General Law, as clear as day. So it sent it to him and said, there we go.
But
But I will not, if there is something like how an ordinance should be written as far as, you know, the public art one or anything like that, those are not ones that myself or any of the rest of the staff would give opinion for.
Counselor?
So not to belabor the point, and I didn't mean to, you know, make this a debate, but by your own logic, it's black and white in the city ordinances that the council has access to the solicitor directly, not to the procurement officer or the administrator or the mayor. It specifically says to the solicitor.
I guess what we can do as a city council is maybe ask if we can put an expense line under city council for legal expense.
Well,
Well, you have litigation expense.
I don't know.
I think we're complicating this a little bit.
well, so I guess, I mean, if, again, didn't mean for this to become a big thing either, but Councilor Bona brought it up, so I think it's more a policy and procedure question rather than a budgeting question.
I
So I
agree.
think if we're still staying within the budget we've assigned for the, you know, this line litigation services, or I don't know what it's called, but the litigation line, I think it's, you know, a procedural matter rather than a
Well,
budget.
I would sort of disagree. It is, to me, it is a budget. Because if we, the council, used a solicitor as we have in the past, the budget for that would probably be another $20,000. Just to say, if we wanted that, if the city clerk had a question and needed to contact the solicitor, as they have done many times, if we were referring our ordinances as we have in the past to make sure they are legally correct, there would be additional fees to that. So if we were using the city solicitor's services as we did 2, 4, 10, 20 years ago, that line item would probably be considerably higher because we'd be paying an hourly fee for them. You know, I mean, again, the city solicitor used to come to our meetings. because if there was a topic that came up, you think about the Mohawk Theater, I mean, there was legal questions, and we did have them come out, but we had to have a sort of a special meeting for that versus they could have just come to a couple of the meetings, and we would be paying for them to be sitting there in case questions did happen, versus before, it was a salary, and if questions came or didn't come, then it didn't cost us any more. So I do see it as it clearly, we're paying the same as we were 10 years ago. In my opinion, the council has lost a lot on that. And if we were to get the same, that would be a much bigger, with the current services, we'd be probably paying another $10,000, $20,000. So that's just my feeling on it. It's definitely, like I say, something I miss being able to call up the solicitor. I mean, you know, I think of all the ordinances. You probably at the beginning with did your first year or two, did you work on any ordinances that were revised or worked on at all with the solicitor?
Not one-on-one, no.
Yeah, see.
I have too many opinions. to really-
I will admit, so even with our last solicitor, towards the end, it wasn't being, it was scaled back from how I remember it prior. I mean, the solicitor was at every other meeting at one point, you know.
I'd like to offer an observation, which is my understanding is that the fee that the solicitor was paid was, you know, parceled out as a retainer on a monthly basis, and so questions of law as well as questions of opinion. So something like the taxi piece could have been referred to the solicitor. So, you know, there's a part of this where there are things that are pretty clear in general law. I was sitting with Mike when that question came up, and it, you know, we actually raced. He was on his computer, I was on my phone to find the relevant section of law. So the ability of all of us to access the statement of law is substantially greater than it was 10, 20, 15 years ago, whatever the time frame was. So the issue is ensuring that all of us, whether it's the council, whether it's the city, whether it's the school department, whether it's the staff, are accessing the solicitor when and only when necessary.
In my work writing ordinances, the thing that I have most lacked is access to informal or casual legal advice where I have the opportunity to have a conversation, pick apart answers I don't understand. It is not a matter of getting a formal binding opinion from the solicitor. Those are useful for being definite and in writing, but they're not useful if there's anything unclear about them, because it's quite a lot of work to, and when I've received the opinions from our solicitor, it hasn't really had a name on it. There's no reply to, so I don't have a way to easily follow up short of making it a whole big thing with the council. So I realize this is probably a separate conversation, but what I would find most useful is having access to some local attorney who can just give me an education more than binding opinions. I feel as though I don't have that.
And you bring up a good point about that contact, that communication, which is what I feel like lost. I don't know, is there a counselor here who can give me a name, an actual name of our solicitor? Like someone we have dealt with legally? Do we know?
I don't have a few.
No, but that's what I'm
But I
saying,
have-
so, what's
there
that?
have been two.
Marsters is one of them.
Yeah, so, but I
There
mean,
have been a few that have come to the meetings that I
What?
would recognize. I don't know if I knew their names. but
right,
Yeah.
and I don't know, to me, that's just,
I thought they were only in KP.
Their name starts with.
So I guess, you know, it's, if it's an issue and someone wants to bring it up to council and, you know, try to put it in general government, you know, see if we should put it in the budget or not, or us to put it in the budget.
well, we can't put it in the budget. We can vote down what is in front of us. We cannot add, we can only vote down what portion. So we can talk like we are now, and then the executive office can decide if they want to change it. But when it comes time, we will vote each section, and basically if we don't like it, we vote down the section and then it is changed. If it passes, then it doesn't have to, you know. So when general government gets voted on, and if the council feels strong enough, or again, this would be with any other portion, then you vote it down, and then it goes back to the administration, and they can decide how they want to change it, and then present us with something new. But we can't just add it, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we will move on to the mayor. Total expenses for the mayor are $136,783. The salaries are $132,783. I just want to break those out. The mayor's actual salary is $84,470, and his administrative assistant is $48,313. Total expenses for the mayor, $4,000, and so that's his total, $136,000. Anybody have any questions? Councilor
Yeah,
Bowman?
this is one also, and you can take it as a compliment if you want, but in my opinion, the position of the mayor's salary is going to become an issue. You know, it hasn't received an increase in at least 12 years. I don't know when the last time it was, but I know the last administration didn't do any increase, and so far this administration hasn't requested an increase. I know it's something people don't like to talk about, but the problem is we have city positions. One time the mayor's position was, I believe, the second or third highest paid position in the city. And I would have a feeling now it's considerably down. When you look at, I mean, there's police officers that get paid more than the mayor when you figure in overtime and things like that. There's firemen that get paid more than the mayor. Principals get paid more. There's probably some teachers that get paid more than the mayor when you look at what they make with all the, you know, programs and things they might teach. You know, the mayor probably doesn't want to be the one that gets up there and says, you know, this should be increased. I don't want to say this should be increased specifically because of Mayor Bernard or because of a previous or past mayor, but we have to look at this position as down the road to keep it, to attract viable candidates. I mean, in my opinion, most people who are good for that position are going to be making more, and some considerably more. I mean, you know, you're in charge of, you know, you're the head of basically a company that's making $40 million. And, you know, I mean, the other night we did the finance committee meeting, and, you know, you got the vice principal McCann is making $20,000 more than the mayor. You know, or the librarian's almost making, you know, not that much more than, less than the mayor. So that position is going to be, I think, an issue down the road, because we're holding off, never giving it an increase while everyone else is getting 1-2% a year. And then at one point, we're going to be like, we can't, no one wants to run for this position. No one wants this position because you can get paid more, you know, being the custodian.
Does anybody know when the last time it's been increased?
I know it's been at least 12 years. It was in the Barrett administration.
Every year, and how long have you been here?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
And then-
so
and
at
it-
least 7 years.
Well, it wasn't at all during the Alcombright administration, and it hasn't been, so we're talking 12 years, at least. And I don't know if it was during the end of Barrett's administration, because at that time's when the state was really hitting, so I don't remember then. I wasn't on the council then. But we also have like the city administrator. So when you look at it, you got the city administrator, I mean, his position, when you count stipends and stuff, pretty soon is gonna be higher than the mayor. It may be already, is it? Is it getting there? No?
Yeah.
But again, you got some good stipends on your position, which, and then there's positions that get overtime, they don't get overtime, so.
So what is the process to?
It doesn't, like, if we vote, it usually have to take, like, a year before, I know there's something like it doesn't go into effect till the following year, but I'm just throwing it out there. It's something that really should be discussed.
Yeah, I agree with you. Counselor LaForest?
You know, there's fiscal responsibility, and then there's chasing pennies to lose dollars or quarters. I don't know what the quote is. But to have not raised the mayor's salary in a dozen years while we're raising every other position to match a professional standard, nearly across the board, or at the very least, giving 1 or 2% raises, it is somewhat foolish. And while I certainly appreciate, Mayor Bernard and, former Mayor Alcombright's sense of fiscal responsibility for the city, I don't think that raising the mayor's salary 2% every year, or 1% for that matter, is going to bankrupt the budgeting process. And so I'm at least in favor of, allowing the mayor's salary to progress, incrementally, as with all of the other salaries in the budget.
I will say under, Mayor Alcombright, he refused it 2 or 3 times, and again, we can't add it. We can't add it. We requested, and just because, again, at the time, what the city, we had 0 reserves, we had, we were dealing with unions, and some of them weren't taking increases, so I could understand it during that point. But again, a number of salaries now are surpassing the mayor's salary in the city, and I don't know, that's
Yeah, that's.
and again, for us now to try to get that salary where it would be, you're gonna see our public sort of an outcry, like, how could you give them, or her this much more? Again, it's not about the person in there now, it is about the position, but we're falling behind. And, even if now we say, let's give 1%, and then let's give 1%, it will always be considerably
Right.
behind now.
I guess we'll have to look, I think there is an ordinance about that, right? And it has to come from the finance committee for the mayor's salary to be reviewed. I believe that's the case. I think we should look at it as maybe the finance committee. We can look
Yeah,
at that
absolutely,
And see where,
absolutely.
I don't know what the ordinance is, but I think it's something that we
Yeah,
should
I'm-
review.
I'd be interested to see what the salaries around the area too for similar positions are, including Pittsfield and
It's
some
low.
of the town administrators, because I think that you have a point that when you start looking at some of these other salaries that are with stipends very close to what the mayor's making, doesn't make it a very well seeked out position if you're trying to recruit other people to the position as well. So I would love to have a look at that as well.
Yeah, okay, we will do that. We'll put that on our.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry.
Okay,
So-
sorry, go
So
ahead.
just for clarification, so are you suggesting that the budget proposal won't be affected, but that the finance committee will review this for subsequent years?
I basically am saying I don't know what the procedure is, so step number 1 is to find out what the procedure is.
Okay, so we can't just add 2%
To look at the
to
ordinance.
this?
Right. I don't think so, I'm not sure, but it's something that I need to dig a little deeper into.
Yeah, I'll look into it too. I believe the mayor cannot recommend 2 increases on
Right.
salary.
I
So
think it has to come from the finance
Okay.
committee. So
Okay.
we'll look into it, and next week I'll have an answer.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, so, information technology, the total is 282,335. That's salaries of 126,480 and expenses of 155,855. I do notice in here, once I saw this, the first thing I saw was, that we do not have anything budgeted for the information technology director, but we do have 2 assistants now, actually, that are budgeted. It doesn't seem we didn't have anything in 2019 budgeted for one of the assistants, but we did for the other. So it looks like we're hiring, or we hired 2 assistants, and we won't have a director of information technology.
Who must have also gotten the on-call stipend.
We've hired 2 individual assistant. We call it, they're under assistant right now, and I don't think we fully determined how we're gonna move forward right now. We have 2 excellent people in those positions. They could just become network specialists and an application specialist. We could be looking at what model we want to go with. I know that we don't have a full definition at this point of how the department's going to fully look, but it is fully staffed. So we have the 2 people, they're learning underneath Kathy right now.
And they are fantastic.
Good.
They're,
So why was that on-call stipend needed? Because it wasn't needed before, but then you took it out.
It was put in, but it's not,
Not being used?
no. Both positions with 2 people, they'll alternate their on-call duties. These are exempt positions, so there is no additional on-call stipend.
Okay, great.
And it doesn't look like it was ever used anyways, was it?
No.
Oh, yeah, I
They didn't
think
even
maybe
adopt
just-
it in 18,
Right.
so it wasn't even budgeted in.
When is Kathy done?
end of June.
When did you?
Oh, wow. That came quick.
Mhm. Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, so we will move on to the Office of Tourism. Total expense is $65,822. That's a salary of $38,022 and expenses of $27,800. Counselor LaForest.
Could we have an explanation as to the promotional and supply lines? What sorts of things are we spending
Advertising, so
locally, regionally?
locally, regionally, if we're in the Mohawk Trail Association guide or the One Berkshire guide, any of those would be considered promotional.
Okay.
Advertising market. I think a little bit of, I don't want to say that because I might be wrong. I think there might be some online, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
I know it's not inexpensive to advertise.
Yeah.
Counselor Cohen?
So for the intern position, we budget $1,500. Doesn't look like we use that. Is that a wishful thinking line item? Like we wish we could get an intern?
Yeah, I don't.
Is it something that we need?
We can always use additional. We can always use additional help there.
Right, so are we looking out for resources for that? I mean, we have 2 great colleges around here.
Yeah. I don't think there was a plan for this year to look for one. So
Okay.
that was why it wasn't included in the budget.
Does promotion activity include memberships or anything also, or does that fall under another category?
I think some of that is under dues and subscriptions. There might be a little bit of membership under that as well.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the planning board then. Total for the planning board is $5,300,
Great level budgeting there.
which is about the same for.
Yep.
And,
Counselor LaForest?
So my comment's not specific to the planning board per se. It actually goes back to the city council budget. And, I would comment also, I certainly didn't run for city council for the stipend, and I more than spend mine, traveling to MMA things and whatnot every month, so that's not my comment. So my comment, though, is actually that the 5 standing committees of the city council, the members are expected to participate in deliberations during committee meetings while taking notes and then generate notes. And it's a lot of work, and I find that it hinders my ability to fully focus on the deliberations. There are many boards and committees, such as the planning board, that have a line item for a secretary to take notes during their meetings so that the members are able to fully participate. And I would just like to throw out there that it would certainly be appreciated if, the council were afforded the same opportunity to have someone take minutes during the meetings.
Yeah, I'm gonna second that, Councilor LaForest, because I know we have utilized the clerk a few times in meetings that are very heavy in discussion, that where we can't focus on the minutes, and in taking notes, it does take away from us being able to have meaningful discussion at times because we're trying to be accurate because it is something that we have to submit for viewing. So, yeah, I'll definitely second that comment because I think that it would be definitely beneficial, and if we're seeing it in other committees, we see here in the License Commission, Planning Board, there's a few other ones in here as well. I think that it would be something that we could definitely use. I think it would be used.
Right. And again, maybe that's something we can bring up through the council to our general government committee.
I know the traffic does not seem to have a secretarial position.
Right.
It's systematic.
Oh, the traffic commission does that, right. I don't know how we would go about by doing that unless just recommending it.
That's all we can do.
Now, right,
We
okay.
can't add it.
Okay, all right.
We can suggest it. I guess one of the things I would say about that is when you look at the planning board and, their expense, it is for their main meetings. And, our main meeting is covered by our city clerk. However, I don't believe the city clerk still doesn't get specifically paid for.
I get the same amount all the other clerks get.
You do now? Okay, yeah, we did add that. Actually, that's right. That up to a few years ago, the city clerk got
So she
nothing
gets a
extra
stipend.
for having
A
to.
stipend of $1,200.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
For
so.
2 meetings.
But that was not the case that long ago. So we did add that. So just keep in mind that our main meeting, we are getting a stipend, she is taking minutes and getting paid for that. The committee meetings would be interesting because some are very short, some are very quick. So I guess, how do you determine when you would have someone paid to, take the minutes or not? Finance committee meetings are lengthy.
But that's not a reason not to have the option.
No. I just didn't know, how would it just be a pool of money, and when we need one, we can pay from it, until it runs out. I'm not sure. I wouldn't want to think for every committee meeting we have, we're going to spend $50 for someone to take minutes, but.
Well, but it's been suggested to me that I should pay out of my pocket
Right,
to have
right.
somebody take notes at a city council committee meeting. And I think that is something that should be done. I don't think councilors should be paying out of their pockets
Right,
to
I
have
agree.
someone take minutes.
Yes, I agree, and I think counselors have at some point paid out of their pockets to get that done, yes. Okay, any other discussion on the planning board? Nope. Traffic and parking control, total for traffic and parking is $18,400. Salaries are $16,700 and expenses are $1,700. Counselor LaForest.
What is the traffic control position?
It's the person that goes around and collects all the fees out of the meters, make sure that they're working. It's currently Dave Sacco does it. You can see him around town, cashing out the meters, adjusting them, fixing them, everything else.
0.5 T, or what is the,
Probably a little less than that, so.
it's an hourly, part-time hourly position?
Yeah, he gets a set amount a month.
Oh, so it's salary.
Yeah.
So, so it's basically, it's an estimate of what we think it takes per hour, or so? And then also maintenance, I'm just curious, with maintenance, if a meter breaks.
Replacing the heads, taking them apart as
Yeah.
needed. Replacement, we have a whole bunch of older ones.
Mhm.
Sometimes we have to swap out the heads if they're in trouble. He takes, you'll see him out there with his collecting from the meters, and then his turnovers to the city. So
Do we have a sense of how many hours, this position uses a month?
I can check with the police department on that.
Are they tracking it?
I will check with them on that.
This figure hasn't changed in a long time. I remember back when one of my arguments at one time was about actually trying to almost consider eliminating meters downtown in general, because there's some communities that you just have 2-hour parking, you don't have, and I remember using this as an argument once that at the time, the revenue for meters was, let's just say, I don't know, let's say 30,000. But yet, I think this is actually probably down now because they actually don't do the meters in Center Street parking lot. They used to do all those meters, you know, there's no meters
There's
there.
no meters.
So,
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I remember at one time, the money made from meters was like 30,000 and we were paying 18 of that to someone to go around and fix meters, and it just seemed like, is that worth $10,000 to be having meters downtown? I don't know the comparison right now. I don't think that figure has changed a whole lot, but I will say, we have about half the meters than we used to.
Right, I
So-
think that's a good question though,
Yeah.
like, do we know what we're getting specifically on a yearly basis just from the meters, not from
Parking tickets.
parking or any other, you know, like I know there's businesses that park in the back parking lot and they pay a monthly fee or whatever they pay.
Yeah.
Just specifically the metered,
I'll get that.
okay.
so if this position is 15 hours a week for 52 weeks a year, we don't know how many hours this position is actually working. 15 hours a week, 52 weeks a year is $20 an hour at a set rate.
Yeah, it's
I think this
21.11
needs to be
hours.
reviewed.
So is it meters only that he's overseeing? So when I see traffic control, I guess that's a little misleading as well. I mean, I see that as more
It's a title
than
that's been there,
meters.
so, you guys want to change the title?
No, and I get that, but this discussion is to bring up those questions, but for the layman's person looking at that, seeing traffic control, they may be able to justify 15.2. When I think of meters, I think that's why the questions are coming up, that is, as we're evolving in this city and we're continuing to see that the need isn't there, A, is traffic control the right word, and B, is this a position that we could potentially get rid of or minimize?
It wasn't always called that. It actually, I think if we go back to old budgets, I think it said
Like
meter, it said
parking
meter
control.
maintenance and management or
Parking
something,
control
you
sounds
know.
better to me.
Right,
Well, or meters, it specifically is meters.
so,
I don't have an issue paying for this, but if the person's working 5 hours a week and they're getting paid this set stipend, that's a bit of a problem.
And that used to also include, I think, managing the kiosk, which, do we have any working kiosk right now?
I don't believe so.
So, like I say, we have a lot less meters, we have no kiosk, and that was supposed to be included in that position.
I mean, I would rather see this money go to somebody writing tickets in the Center Street parking lot, you know, versus,
Right.
You're on camera.
I'm zooming in.
Jason said that.
And so the police department monitors this as well, so this is something that's kind of under the foresight of the police department, this position?
Yeah, this position takes care, you know, they take care of the meter, they pretty much operate independently.
Okay.
It's been the way it
Okay.
has, but it's typically been
Who does
a
he
police
report
officer or a, right now,
Yes.
Dave, I would assume
The mayor?
it's the chief.
to? Okay, so, but then, I ask that because it's under,
It's under
the
general
yeah, it's under
government.
general government, so is this the correct place for it? That, you know, it's just,
Yeah, I think.
Who's
I think there's a
overseeing
couple-
his
there's a couple of
hours?
questions here that are worth
Yeah, we're
Worth
checking
digging a little
into.
deeper
Yeah,
into.
that's,
Yeah.
and also, general government, those terms, public safety, public, you know, the library and senior center, individuals go to me, not Tim. And just because they're in that, because of the budget, there's 6 budget categories, we have to fit everything in. It doesn't mean that's who's reporting.
right, and I
to whom.
understand that, but this to me does not seem
This
like it
is,
fits.
this is definitely an odd one out, I would say, of any of them that I've seen it.
And this goes sort of in line with this because it involves this position where they might have to do less or more. Have we put any more thoughts in consideration of as we upgrade meters and actually one time I proposed, and there's some communities in Massachusetts, it doesn't even require upgrading the meters. It's basically the use of these apps. There are
It still
stickers
doesn't, yeah.
on the meters, so you just run the app and
You don't need anybody to
no, it
make
doesn't
it.
require any new meters. It's basically a sticker, you upload the app, you pay, the police, or whoever comes around, they scan it, they can see that meter is currently
Passport, I think
being
that's-
paid for.
yeah.
I remember, I can look it up, but there was, and I called the communities that were doing it, and they said it was well worth it.
I love it though, because if I need to put more money in my meter, I'm like,
Well, actually, it would
park all
notify
day.
you.
Yeah.
It would notify you that your
Yeah.
meter is either about to expire or you have to move your car because your 2-hour limit is up,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, all right. I think we're ready.
All right, that was
Okay, Mr.
some healthy
Sapienza?
discussion.
Just one question regarding what Counselor Bona was mentioning. What if you don't have a smartphone or without a phone? What do
Then you
do?
pay quarters.
Okay.
The meter's still
That
there,
would
it's just-
still-
It's the same exact meter, it's just a
Still
sticker
pay.
that goes on it. It says, if you want to pay by your PayPal or whatever, you upload this. And then, so people in general in the area, but again, other communities are starting to use more and more of this, so it's just, it's becoming more common. But it would just also require, then there's less money being put into the meters. They maybe wouldn't have to go around as much emptying the meters also, so.
Right. Again, maybe this
Yep,
is
yep.
something we can bring
Yep.
up to the traffic commission through the council, other communication. Treasurer and collector, we have a total of $278,446. Total salaries is $210,846. Total expenses is $43,000. I'm not sure why we have 3 other expenses out here that are separate from the expenses, but we do. We have administrative expenses of $1,000, foreclosure expenses of $22,100, and other expenses, service charges and fees of $1,500. So I'm not sure why that doesn't feed all up into the regular expense line.
Because
So
at some
that
point,
makes sense.
20 years ago, somebody put a, I mean, and that, I'm not being flip, but that's it. At some point, somebody created a
Template.
A
a
subcategory.
budget subcategory, and that's how it
Okay.
got recorded. There's no reason not to merge them, and then they would just take a couple years to cycle off until everything's zeroed out.
Yeah. Mr. Sapienza?
Yeah, could I get an explanation on the, under foreclosure expenses, foreclosures, what that money actually does?
For properties that are in tax title that we're going to take tax possession of.
Does that cover like the legal expenses incurred by
Taken
the
through
city?
land court.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mr. LaForest?
And the principal clerk line
I was just
jumped
gonna ask that.
$43,000 last year to this year. Is that correct?
The other one flip-flopped down. The S13 and the S10, what are those two?
Right, one person went to part-time, and we brought on another part-time person. So we have some part-time in there, and it was mainly just a reshuffling.
Okay.
There used to be two full-time, and then now there's,
So by not budgeting for the foreclosures, does that mean we are all set? We're not going to be going after anyone for
no, we
any
have,
tax
well,
titles?
I don't know why there's foreclosures there, and then there's foreclosures also under foreclosure
Yeah, I
expenses.
noticed there's 2
Yeah.
different lines for foreclosure.
Yeah,
How come?
don't know. We're only budgeting foreclosures down under foreclosure expenses.
That probably just needs to phase
Is
itself
that
out.
through a different legal service or also KP Law?
Most of that, we use Jim Capola
Okay.
for that.
So in a sense, we've increased it, so we're expecting to, is it just because fees have gone up or because we're expecting to go after more?
Well, so it's a combination. It's a little bit of both, but, wanting to do, some more, moving properties from tax title into tax possession so that we could potentially, auction them.
Please know I'm taking notes, that's why there's a long pause. Just
For her
kidding.
meeting minutes?
Yes.
Nobody's transcribing for her.
Okay, so anyways, are we all set with the treasurer
Yeah,
and
I'm good.
collector? Okay, and the final one is vital statistics, and we have $2,000 for that, and I'm not sure what that is for.
Yeah, what is vital statistics? The clerk? Vital statistics.
That's vital statistics for the treasurer and collector. That's
Oh, this is the treasurer as well?
So it's probably all of our statistics in the city that they actually have to bind and submit and,
Yeah.
yeah, we have to keep that in the bulk.
The
right?
book that you guys
Yeah.
create?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why the budgets.
Okay, so that is it for, actually, the budget, right? We've been through the complete budget, and that's it for general government. We also have the compensation plan that you handed out that we wanted to review today. I don't know, I guess, you know, it's kind of difficult to go through these,
Line by
but
line, yeah.
is there anything that has changed since
Uh,
last year that we should be aware of?
Well, we have in here a 1% for non-union staff. We have a
1% increase, correct?
1% increase to the scale. We have under agreement 2% for the DPW. We have a 1 and a 1 for the fire department.
What's up with the one?
One at the beginning of the year, one halfway through the year.
So that's part of the reason we need two
That's why you're
compensation
gonna have-
plans.
That's why you have to have two.
Okay, and they're in the second year of a 3-year contract.
This
what I
will be the
understand.
third year. The one that we're
Going on.
approving.
Okay,
They're in the second year now,
Okay.
next year will be the third year. In addition, the second half of the year, we have minimum wage, all positions going to $12.75. So we've already taken into consideration for the minimum wage increase.
and that's gonna start in January
January
2020.
1st. Yep,
Will there be anyone employed by the city below minimum wage after that time?
not on the city side.
Where would they
The
be?
school department possibly, I don't know.
So the school department is employing individuals below minimum wage?
There may be a couple of categories. Part-time staff.
I don't know, I had it as a question too, but I was taking notes. I forgot.
No one in the library now.
Part-time.
No one in the library.
We brought everyone in the library up to
Okay.
minimum wage.
Because they used to have a number of.
Maybe we can follow up with a question to the superintendent.
Yeah, we can do that.
And I'm only saying that because I only know for sure on the city side.
Yep.
Well, actually, I think at one point we requested, and I don't know if we actually got the breakout, but knowing with minimum wage increasing the next, what, 4 years, 3 years?
Yeah, it's gonna go to $13.50.
Is there a way
$14.25,
to
and then
just
15.
show just that alone, just the minimum wage increases of how that much adds to our budget? I mean, is there
Yeah,
a way
you
to
could.
figure out that number
Rough
of
projection, yeah.
Right.
of how many are currently getting minimum wage, and because, and of course, it sort of affects, it does affect more than that, because if the person's making minimum wage, it goes up $1, the person who's making more than the $1 minimum wage, it's gonna be like,
It's
you
not.
have to-
When you
it's
get
not
to a
gonna-
$15 minimum wage, the issue is not so much the minimum wage cost for the
Right.
minimum wage person.
Everybody else.
It's the gap between the person making minimum wage and the lowest paid staff on the compensation scale, particularly as we need to hire replacements if we have retirements or people move on.
right.
Yeah.
So I would like, if possible, somehow to see that projection of, just because of minimum wage increases, how much each year that's going, just that alone.
It's not gonna impact us much.
Not the minimum wage, but again, sort of the
Yeah,
whole,
but
how it
that's-
shifts
but-
everybody.
Well, that's what we don't know, and that's a discussion that we've talked about that we need to have over the summer with the finance committee, is the impact, as the mayor said, to those positions, because $15 roughly equates to $30,000 annually.
Mhm.
If you look on this compensation plan, you can see a lot of starting positions that are at
Below
or
30.
below 30,000. So the
So-
impact is, how are you gonna adjust those mid-range people that are around 30,000? Where are we going with them? What are we doing with them?
Once we settle this budget, and, you know, my folks have heard me say this, they get to, you know,
walk around the building, get some fresh air, and then we start on both the 21 budget as well as some deeper long-term projections. And, so there are a couple of things we've talked about. We want to look at all fees to make sure that the schedule of fees makes sense. There's a piece of that in the chapter 8 of the ordinance, the things that are in the public safety section. We want to look at the classification plan and really get it to a point where it is reflecting not these legacy positions from that don't exist anymore, but a true sense of what is the operation of the city. What does it look like right now? So we're presenting a classification plan that's in line with that, and then use that to figure out what should the compensation plan look like. We have some people who the differences, because they're one grade versus another, are infinitesimally small, and we need to rationalize it and get it to a point where it's a plan that is suitable for where we are and where we see ourselves going because of increases to minimum wage, how we address the starting salary scale to make city service attractive to people who we want to attract as we have vacancies and opportunities.
Because even someone who's at 32,000, well, they're gonna be like, well, I don't wanna deal with the stress of that job, but I can go make pizzas,
Like, do we
for
have to
$2,000 less,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So no, I think that's a great
So
idea.
we
It's something that
have
needs
already
be
started to
addressed.
roadmap, and some of this will be staff work first, and then brought forward as we have something
Yes, 'cause
matured.
this is, what, 10
If you-
pages?
Yeah, if you even look at
Yeah.
like S3, go to your 20 to 24. I'm looking at the December 29 through June 20th. It's gonna go from 31,099, so to 31,210. That's
$11.
That's a $110 increase
110, sorry.
after 5 years of service. Your step is gonna equal a $110 increase in your pay. There's no rhyme, logic, or reason to this scale. It may have had it at one point, but it's lost it, and we need to almost reset it. After 5 years, I would say that's nothing. I mean, if you take it out.
If I could just comment on why that is.
Yeah.
The city employees used to receive the longevity pay. So if you look at it in 5-year increment, that was the longevity pay. So that's where those numbers originated from. And I'm not sure how many years ago now, probably maybe 90 or 91. The previous administration had taken the longevity pay out. You used to get it in a payment
Right.
every year. However many years, I think it was 500, then the following 5 years was a 600 stipend, and so on and so forth. So that's why you're seeing that $100 very small increments.
Right.
So those were they weren't taken away from us, they were put into our salary. I'm just saying that's my understanding.
But when you work 2,080 hours and you get a $110 increase,
Oh, no, I
you can
completely
figure out that
understand.
it's literally pennies
Yeah.
that
Right.
you're receiving after 5 years
Outdated.
of service.
Yeah, it's outdated.
And it just seems like this scale needs to be,
Yeah, it does, but back to Debbie's point, after 5 years under the same grouping, if you go from the
That was where
4th
the
year to the
longevity
5th
kicked in,
year,
yeah.
it's an increase of up to $3,000, so that was,
Another question on the
Like
compensation
9
plan
to 10
is,
years is 100.
as a whole, is, and I think this question may have been asked maybe when we went through the retirement board thing, but currently, how many employees receive stipends, let's say over $1,000? Have any idea?
I have that, actually, I have that report from the treasurer's office, which I'll be.
Oh, do you have it? Oh, okay.
Good. Yeah,
You're
that'd be good to
just
have.
gonna send us an
Yes.
updated
Yeah.
copy.
Because I didn't know how does such stipends, I mean, obviously the council gets stipends, I mean, you get a stipend, but how, is there a limit to what someone can get for a stipend? I mean, because I mean, legally you can say someone can't have 2 jobs being paid by the city, but yet you can have 2 jobs and one can just pay a stipend basically. So how legally, like, is there a limit to a stipend? Can someone get $20,000 stipend? I mean, it seems like it's a loophole we've used to get around that you can't have two jobs for the city, so I'm just curious because when we look at these compensation plans and you look at the positions, you're not always actually seeing exactly what that particular position is making because it's not always showing the stipend that's with it.
Right, so maybe when.
It's
you
a bit
do
of a
the
false,
compensation
number.
plan, maybe you can eliminate some of those stipends and generate it into.
I don't know if legally you can, I'm not sure if, if they're two different positions and one legally, if you can pay him a stipend, but you can't legally pay him a
I mean, I
second
can see
pay.
some of them, like, for planning board or for, some of those, if the person can't do it anymore, then somebody else would be assigned that. So it's not necessarily, usually they fall in additional hours outside of their normal duties.
Yeah, like the green community coordinator.
Okay.
I mean, in all fairness, like, you get a stipend, right?
Yes,
And is it for the ice skating rink?
skating rink.
Right, so, which used to be a separate position, but we sort of eliminated that and you took on those duties?
Well, we had a single position that was paid 56,000.
Yeah.
And now we have a single person down there at 30, and then the other duties that need to be done down there, I handle for 5.
Right.
So when you put it together,
And I'm not targeting you on this, I'm just using, it's just.
I took over the management, whether it's, the last Friday we were open, we had a call out of 2 staff, so I went down and manned the.
But I'm
So
saying,
when
if
it
someone
took
wants,
on those additional times and duties, but, right, if that wants to get assigned to somebody else, that's usually what it is.
Yeah.
It's something that, it's not inherent in my position, it's something taken on if somebody else wants it.
and I don't mean to target you,
Yeah,
I
no,
just
I know.
know that it's one of the bigger ones that stands out, so, but I just didn't know across the board how many of those are out there. And again, when we're looking at positions and salaries, and you don't see the stipends, and that's where I was getting to before, when there are some positions that are getting stipends, they can add up to be more than.
No, but the only thing I
than-
guess I'm pointing out is what you're paying is the person for that job.
I get it. Oh,
Ross is being paid to be the assessor. That's what he's making as assessor. Yes, he gets a hearing officer, and yes, he gets the.
Green community.
The green communities. But either of those, he could give up technically tomorrow, and those aren't part of his duties as the assessor. They're nothing a part of the assessor, they're something that he's taken on, so.
And this is separate from his duties and their
Yeah.
off hours.
The hearing officer you have to have a hearing officer, has to go for training, so it's one of those things, you have to have somebody that's the hearing officer, and, that's usually
have to
during
be
the
here
day,
during
because usually that's when the
regular
people are coming in
hours.
to see them. And they wanna contest this or that, and somebody hears that, and it gives them an appeal process, which we have to have for parking tickets and things
Mhm.
like that. So we're required to have a hearings officer. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the assessor.
Right.
Right,
It could be
right.
anybody that wishes to take on that responsibility. That one's not always a fun one. Usually it's people that are coming in quite upset about a parking ticket or something in that regard.
Yeah, he dealt with my mother, so that was worth a couple hundred right there.
Okay. Trevor has.
Could you just answer or clarify some things on this airport maintenance position? So under the changes to Schedule A of the classification plan, I see the airport manager and the clerk are listed under the airport commission, but the maintenance position is not listed, which would be a new position this year. I would think that would be a new change. And could you tell me what grade that position falls under?
It's falling under the same as as a mechanic in the DPW would have a hoisting license. Do you know what that is? I believe it's
in the budget.
I thought it was a W.
Oh, it's listed under the...
Yes, it is, it is in the budget, in the airport. Find it.
Yeah, I'm gonna find it. As a race ticket.
No, I stand corrected, the grade is not there, but the position is, so.
Yeah.
I'll get that put in for the final one coming,
Okay.
but I believe it's no, that's cemetery, I'm trying to find the airport. No, it's not in there, but it is the same, we use the same starting category as a person with a hydraulics license.
And so, but it would be added under the airport commission as a,
Not the airport commission, the airport.
I know what he's saying, under the,
purview of
Yes,
the
under the
commission?
airport budget, it will be, I mean, it's already in the budget there.
Right. So your question is?
So I
maybe-
guess
You must know what the grade is.
Right, my question, I guess, is in the classification plan, you're not planning on adding it because it's just gonna fall under what another category already
Yes.
is under the highway department?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But, I mean, is your question also, is this person gonna fall under the purview of the airport commission? Or are they gonna fall under the
Well,
purview
that's a good
of?
question.
Definition under ordinances is that the airport falls under the director of the commissioner of public services.
Okay,
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
The commissioner of public services.
Is what?
Technically, the airport falls under.
Under the city charter? The airport falls under
The
the
ordinance.
director?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever had Tim at your,
No, that's all right. I've read through that plenty of times, but I'll just agree to disagree on that.
Do we have any positions specifically, or are they just part-time when they need to go down there, that work at the Heritage Park, which is under the redevelopment authority? Is that just under Bill, basically?
it's just under building and grounds.
And so any work that's done down there is through our
Through our
regular building and grounds
property division.
employees?
Yep.
And we don't, which I know they have no money, but we don't get compensated or anything from redevelopment authority for that. Which is why I want to get rid of it.
Working on it.
okay, I think that is everything. Does anybody have any questions
But
about
one
the
that you
comp
started
plan?
to say that actually I do need to get is the
Police chief.
police chief.
Yeah, I didn't see it on there.
Because I don't have his,
Okay.
so I need to get that from you, Mayor, to put in here.
Oh, that's right, we hadn't finalized that when we
Right.
started this conversation.
Right, yep, I
Yeah.
should mention that too.
So that will be one adjustment before the final one, then will go to the city council. So I have to put it in the police chief line.
Okay.
So you're probably within a short period, I might try to get an answer on what the council needs to do then for discussing the increase
Yeah,
for the
I'm
mayor's
gonna look-
salary, because
I'm gonna look into that.
that, may, if it, depending on how quick it gets done, could be on for next year's budget.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I hope
Yeah,
to, I will
meeting.
look into that this weekend and talk to.
I always feel it's actually
Councilor
better
Cohen?
to have an increase, knowing that the increase is going to happen during an election year, the year after the election. I'm just saying, that's how I've always seen it, because then it doesn't look as political. So in other words, if the increase is happening next year, it's letting people know it's not like you're increasing it while the person's in there, so.
Yeah, I have to look into it and see
Okay.
exactly what the requirements are and, the timeframes and who actually approves it, so I will have that information available for you at the next meeting.
Or Mike's gonna look it up too.
Mike,
See,
Sure. You think Mike doesn't know the answer and he's just sitting, he's
I don't know.
holding his cards
I
close
know.
to his vest?
If the solicitor was sitting here.
Yeah.
Oh, and yet another one.
Oh, if you know the answer, you can tell him.
If I did, I would.
Okay. Okay,
It's not
motion to
something-
adjourn, okay,
Alright.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.